Thank you so much, beautiful Liberals. Thank you.
Well, it took 3 long ballots for Kathleen Wynne to take the prize and become the Liberal leader and the Premier designate all at the same moment. Plus, she becomes the 6th female Premier in Canada. However, she also will lead a minority government that is reeling from scandals and protests and may be soon tested at the ballot box. Well, joining me now is Global's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Alan Carter, and beside him, the Toronto Star's Bureau Chief at Queen's Park, Rob Benzie. Welcome to you both. Benz, let me start with you, and let's deal with the big question here. The Liberals have been in power for almost a decade in Ontario now. Yeah, they've got a new leader, but it's a minority government. How long can it survive? When's the next election going to be?
Well, you know, because Kathleen Wynne won last night, I don't think the election will be as soon as if Sandra Pupatello had won. I think that Ms. Wynne, as a Harvard-educated mediator, is going to be able to reach out to Andrea Horwath, the NDP leader, and perhaps avert an election that could have come as early as April. I think we're now looking at more like a fall campaign, or maybe next year, Tom.
Well, Alan, just pick up on that. I mean, because Kathleen did talk last night about reaching out and mediating and trying to find common ground. But what common ground is there between the Liberals, the Conservatives, and the NDP that hasn't been tried already?
Well, I don't think there's any common ground between the Liberals and the PCs. I don't think they're going to play ball in any way, shape, or form. There is quite a bit of common ground, though, on the center left and the left with the NDP. And the NDP saying last night, listen, you know, in Ontario, you really only have 2 opportunities coming up to bring the government down from the opposition benches. And that is the throne speech. The NDP says, we're not going to bring them down over a throne speech. And then the budget. And last year, the budgetary process, we saw a lot of back and forth. And finally, there was a deal. Even last night, Ms. Wynne talking about some of the NDP proposals for tax credits tied to job creation being something that she'd look at. So already we have some proposals possibly on the table that they could try and get some kind of deal with the NDP.
Well, there's no question, I guess, that Kathleen Wynne sort of represents the progressive or the left side of the Liberal Party. But, you know, Benz, what interested me watching this yesterday was that there were almost as many people outside Maple Leaf Gardens as inside Maple Leaf Gardens. The protesters, the teachers primarily. But don't the Liberals have an enormous problem here that their natural allies, the teachers, the public servants, are very much opposed to them at this point, to the point of trying to disrupt their convention? I mean, how serious a problem is that for them?
It's a huge problem, Tom. I mean, this is, as you say, this is their constituency. These teachers' unions helped the Liberals win 3 elections. Premier Dalton McGuinty boasted that he was the education premier. He's raised their salaries, their test scores are better, class sizes are smaller. So they have made improvements, but then because of austerity measures that they've had to take, they've had this wage freeze, they've had to roll back things like bankable sick days. Teachers' unions are very angry. Now, I think that it's useful to remember that Kathleen Wynne started out as a parent activist in the time of Mike Harris. That's how she got involved in politics. She didn't like what the Tory government of Mike Harris was doing to education system. The education system, became a school board trustee and emerged through that kind of avenue into politics. And she is someone who the teachers' unions, I think, will be able to deal with. Now, the cupboard's bare. There's no dough to give these folks to appease them. So I don't know if just some sunny rhetoric from her is going to be enough. But she's going to be different than Dalton McGuinty in dealing with the teachers' unions. I think that's a safe bet. Yeah.
I want to throw something to both of you because it's already this morning getting international attention. Kathleen Wynne is. On a number of counts. First of all, Ontario's first female premier. That's no big deal if you live in Alberta, British Columbia, Newfoundland, or Quebec for that matter, but so what? For Ontario, it's a big deal. But also, look, she is Canada's first openly gay politician, which is creating attention around the world. How big a deal is this for Ontario, for Canadian politics?
Well, I mean, I think it's a big deal in many ways in terms of being the first. You know, Kathleen Wynne, in her really tremendous speech before delegates yesterday, took this right on, head on, addressing the so-called elephant in the room, saying, you know, is Ontario ready for a gay premier? And she said, well, what that really means is, can a lesbian win in Ontario? And she said, look, you know, I was told when I first ran in my riding in Toronto, there's no way you're going to win, and I've won. And I think that going forward that, the Liberals have a lot of trouble. And perhaps Kathleen Wynne's troubles in terms of her identity are more, I think she has to worry more about the fact that she's from Toronto than she has to worry about the fact that she's gay.
Yeah, I think that's right, Tom.
Go ahead.
No, I think that's right, Tom. I mean, certainly it's a landmark. I mean, Kathleen Wynne's now the second most powerful politician in Canada, and the first openly gay premier that the country's ever had. And, I mean, Ontario, remember, would be a G20 country unto itself. So this is something that is going to get an international attention. But Alan's right. Her bigger challenge is probably about geography than sexual orientation. She's from Toronto, and this is where the Liberal Party is strongest. But the Liberal Party needs to grow in rural Ontario, in other parts of the province, the north, and that's where they can find their majority. And is she going to be better at getting that than Sandra Pupatella, who made that a sort of crux of her campaign? That remains to be seen. I don't know.
Okay, Robert Benzie of the Toronto Star, Alan Carter of the Global Bureau at Queen's Park. Thank you both very much for being here this morning. Appreciate your time.